What's going down, everyone? And if you're here for the brand new patch. They just gave us a new patch for Nvidia with their 4.40. I think it was 9.8 was the last one, and now, or no, it was 9.1, give or take. It was something kind of variation of the 4.0. Now we are on 4.41.08, the brand new patch that's going to be fixing a few different things that we're going to get into the patch notes and see if there's any performance fixes as we test the very last variant of what's going down. So let's go ahead and jump over to where we have our web situation. Pulling up directly. Doesn't seem to be. We'll go back to the test and I will fix that directly. Looks like our web WIM needs a property point. I just need to go to the main menu. There we go. And as you can see, the patch right there directly of what we are looking at today, which is the variant of the 440 driver, but then you have the 44108. Like I explained earlier, there's another variant of that, which I believe is like 9798. I forget which exactly variant it was. I just recently covered it, but I've been covering a lot of patch notes. And you can look at this as the actual fixed local footnote, but let's go ahead and jump in to as far as what we're looking at is the patch notes, and this is going to be the added support for the Super of the 1660 GPU. Big surprise, as they just introduced that one, and Vanilla brought back the 2070 as the situation goes down to a point they just want price per dollar in every single category as they're looking into it. But as you can see, the added support for the image sharpening on the Nvidia control panel, as well as this Acer CG 437K, BG27-2U, BG27-2X, and then the OC version of the 27G2 G4, and then the Asus XG279Q, the Dell AW2720HF, and the LEN 27Q20. I mean, basically, the Y27Q20 is the only one that's making the list from that maker, as well as the Dell and the Asus, but it seems like there's a lot more Acer fixes directly inside of there, as you have the independent roundabout in the patch notes. Now, looking at the added support where we have the reshader filter and the GeForce experience, as well as the situational point of the window G-Sync for the OpenGL Vulkan-based applications. There is an application in the update is not available for anything for SLI applications as they slap into anything that goes dual. And then coming down to the portion of where the image sharpening control to the Nvidia control panel is in the Manage 3D settings page. Increase the level of sharpening, details, or clarity of the image in the game application. So go to your Nvidia sync, and we can always try to look at that real fast at the very tail end of the update after we do some tests and see some back-to-back situations as we're coming down to the tail end of the very last portion of the last update before we do the install. The added ultra low instincts of latency, and you can see that they have the provided tiers and fears of the low latency gaming utilizing the G-Syncs of what you can see the display. To enable the low latency mode to the ultra, turn the V-Sync or enable G-Sync to display. Added support for the HDMI 2.1 VRR, and then the game ready fixes full list. Please check out our release notes that is not available. So we can try to see if we can find the release notes directly. I'm hoping them to be tethered directly inside of here. But I'm assuming by release notes they're checking this, which is your full breakdown. And then you can kind of see like what they kind of like fix for point for point. But looking at that situation as we go down to the more of the important open issues, is the Super Robots Wars 5 crashes with a white screen. The War Thunder crashes may crash during gameplay, as well as Battlefield 5 when G-Sync and the HDR is enabled. Excuse me, I've been fighting that one back for a good second. So you can't get that situation going for the taskbar. GTA 5, the game frequency crashed, and Nvidia is working with the application developer, and that was the last time that they had on that last update too as well. So you can see that there's a studio driver as well as the new portion of what the 44108, which we're going to go ahead and install. Let's go ahead and jump back right over to our display portion, and you can see where we got the Time Spy Extreme, and that was our test right there. So let's go ahead, exit out everything. We're gonna go ahead and go to our GeForce panel, and that should probably get us directly to where we're supposed to. I'll just run it as administrator, so we can be cool like a boss. And this one was nice because like I was like knocked out of internet for a good second, and then when I came back to this, I was like really pleasantly surprised. You can kind of see, let's see here, the 44097, yes, which was installed on the 22nd. Now we're looking at this whole other new update, which is coming down to the gameplay. But let's go ahead and see if there's any, like, I'm trying to see if there's any tethering point that they can give me, because sometimes they do give better like release situations. In this situation, let's just go ahead and download, and we'll install directly on top of there. But going back directly to the web and technology news of where we're going in the newer portions of how technology is driving the future in like Nvidia, and like we're looking at like Intel meeting the market where SLI is coming back. It's going to be really exciting for as far as like the gameplay of where we can get down to portions where there's like studio updates and all these other things where it goes down to more of a crash situation. But let's go ahead and go back to the Nvidia portion of things and see if there's anything else we can do. And all these are directly supported down below. I put in all the links to here as we're killing time, and it seems like our update is already new, and we can see the situation as other people are experiencing the first and seconds the override. So like we'll look at that in a few seconds. Maybe some people are experiencing different situations, and if you are, let me know in a comment down below. Always love to hear from the community of what you're experiencing. Let me know what GPU you have and what issue you're having with that processor of CPU. That always helps, a little information. But as I'm letting this like run and install, let's go ahead and go back to the web, and we can kind of see the situations like right here where people are looking for would the 16 Super fit my needs? And that's always a good question. It just depends what the adequate portion. No, I think for dollar where they're trying to compete directly where AMD is pushing like the market to go farther, which is great because it's like we're seeing both companies again, like what I said earlier in this episode, was competing against each other, and that's what we want to see for as consumers, pushing forward inside of a thing. We don't want to see them release a card that they retired just because they want to sit on like a market, but they could just be trying to get rid of the technology versus where AMD will liquidate their stuff really fast by dropping the price. Intel and Nvidia are they like to stockade on there, but they do cherry pick the better wafers in my opinion for the technology, what's going down, and AMD is just starting to get more on that portion of it, whereas this no GPL scaling option in the image scaling. Just installed the latest driver. So a lot of people are trying to look for this whole situation. That we will try to cover that directly in the end. It looks like it's already done, so let's go ahead and slap right over. As we can kind of see right there, we can close. Now, one of the cool things I do like about their updates is it works really fast and really quick. And we can see like the dash itself looked a little bit better. But let's go ahead and start the test because I wanted to kind of go run two tests against each other. DirectX 11, DirectX 12, and then the Port Royale test since I was running some earlier, and see if there's any bigger differences in the 3D mark. And this is like with no bloatware, everything's just basically stock, so it just kind of like utilizes its variance. Sometimes you can have, I've noticed sometimes depending on with the score test and what you're doing, like 100 depending on if it gets cold to hot, the ambient temperatures. But let's go ahead and start with a Fire Strike. We can go ahead and run that and let it run in the background as we kind of like research where a lot of people are having issues on this image quality of videos. So these are all great questions in like the situation, but a lot of people are doing the image scaling from 720 to 1080p, which would probably be somewhat noticeable, but the charming differences would probably be from like 4K to 2K and 2K from 1080p. More than likely, I would notice like more of a clarity difference, I would assume, in the sheen of smoothness you'd be able to get inside of there. But we are going to go ahead and like dip into that control quality situation, see if we can find that in tail end, because that does seem like a lot of people are looking for that. But on the other portions of where the news is going and the situation of like the market, it's going to be interesting to see if a rumored, I don't think that they should do it. The super version of a 2080 Ti, I think that it wouldn't be that profitable. To think that Nvidia hasn't thought of it is, well, it's naive. I like to think that they have thought about that situation multiple times, but the market would be so slim for certain people just to get a certain edge, which they're probably going to be pushing the technology even further in the next generational point of cards past RTX eventually. It'd probably be more worthy of them putting that money towards that technology, since they do hold the contending portions of having the better video cards for right now until we get to the very early quarter of next year in 2020, when we see the Nvidia killer, as AMD jokes about. The situation of seeing if that can actually contend with the 2080 Ti or maybe even surpass the 2080 Ti just depends on what they're going to be utilizing in technology and as well, or as Navi's progression and software updates. Especially if ray tracing's being thrown into the mix, I'm going to be very interested to see what they're going to be throwing out, especially with having the Radeon 7 and seeing the performance somewhat getting better, but it's not exactly where I wanted it to, and that's where the 2080 Ti really fits the bill, with having the CL and the open coding that I want to have for editing. It's just a more well-rounded card. Nothing bad with MDs, as you can see the AMDs as a good alternative for gaming, yes, in that situation, but certain points in, having to flash a BIOS and do all this other complicated stuff isn't exactly what I want to do. Sometimes it's easier. So. Good stuff, good times, and we're going to be coming out to our roundabout test and the very end of it. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we're going down for the Fire Strike test at the very end and see if we can start seeing some more noticeable differences in these tests as we look forward in these AMD versus Nvidia patch notes and starting to see the performance boosts in all of the softwares going forward. And I can't wait for Intel, especially since Intel took AMD's head, basically their GPU creator, and then they just plugged them into what's going down there. That's going to be really interesting to see what happens there. So not too bad for as far as tests go. I like to think that that was a little bit lower than what I had last time. If you kind of we can look at our benchmarks, compare our scores. Not too bad. If I overclocked that, I could probably get it into this margin, probably around 26, because I did overclock it prior in that situation, and you can kind of see if we hit fire strikes. You'll see what I'm talking about. It's yeah, that we got that. And then I got this, which was my overclock one, which is 2, and then 4, which is the standard. So you can kind of see that there's a drop inside of there. But I did run them back to back, and you can kind of see that there was a variant when I was running 2 screens at 4K, which you have 2489, which is 2 screens, the normal workload of what a person would be utilizing inside of a creator's a situationable point. This being just 1 screen tuned for more optimization of seeing the app run and going back and forth between it, and this being the same exact duplicate test and it showing a variant of decreasing inside of the situation. So I would like to think where they've kind of gained ground in the last update, they've kind of lost ground a little bit in the DirectX 11 portion. Now again, there might be variants, and maybe there might be a test that kind of comes in tippy toes with maybe the 2500 range where it would kind of be a little bit there, but it seems like they've kind of gone down the progression of that situation. So let's go ahead and test our DirectX 12, and since we did the extreme test of 12, let's go ahead and do the exact stream test against itself to see what we can get inside of that situation. Now, looking forward into a crystal ball of where CUDA cores can advance and where we can kind of see the green screen technology of AI and technology of the Tensor Core and OBS and all these really great developers utilizing more of this technology that's going to give us as content creators as well as just enthusiasts and game players, they're just looking for basic stuff. I mean, this would be where having just a basic card, but having an image quality setting where you can kind of upgrade it is going to be more down to the point of to the players great excitement, because I mean that's where you really want to get down to. It's you really want to be excited for the next gameplay you have or the next portion of technology and install you have. These are more of the dollar for dollar of what we want to see. We don't have to watch some LTT video to see do I have to delid this? Do I need to learn what delidding is? Do I need to learn what liquid metal and the diverse effects of this, and like then you look at like 6 months later of learning the diverse effects and trial and error of trying it yourself and understanding this is really complicated when a business can just be like, oh yeah, software update will totally fix this. So it's like when you look at situations after two updates where 4.36.02 came out, and now we're here at this portion of the update saga of where a they're looking at a 440 base and the 441 like variant of the this one right now we're testing and seeing like the direct cause and effects of what they've actually kind of like pushed out there in this base product, because they're gonna have to compete with like more variants as the technology and software companies, like who knows what Intel might have up their sleeves or as far as like an integrative software, and especially with AMD giving an open software where most companies can utilize that again, like image sharpening or anything else and beyond. Who knows where the integration of that technology might go to push this company or other companies or other like I guess entities that are technology that will utilize this technology to push forward. I mean, we looked at major processors and situations and the way that they can be all stored in one central unit, and then you look at other one companies that take the same exact situationable point but utilize diodes and spread out those diodes within chiplets in order to make cores. And now you start seeing the different technology being utilized in different companies in different formats but still being the same technology in the core. It's like your rotary engine versus your basic mechanical engine, and like the saga of what goes down inside of evolution in different portions of technology. Different fields, yes, but same concepts in the situation of having the same cores driving, but different engines rather. So I'm like really super stoked to see like we're 7nm like technology, 5nm technology, 3nm technology, down to the point where we get to 1nm and beyond, where those chips become the chips of chips, and that's bearing more of a universal portion of technology and understanding the simultaneousness that we can basically have a fluidity of doing these things with. I mean, to think that years ago, like almost like a decade ago, four processors was the cream of the crop, and that was all we were really going to see for major portions of consumers was kind of okay, but not really where we wanted to be, because most of us were rocking single to like maybe dual cores. So it's like now wondering where we can kind of push the price point of 32 cores, 64 cores, because that's one thing I'm really excited about. When November 5th around the corner, we're looking at like the announcement from AMD and them looking at where they've stomped the new 1090 8K, like basically their comic like for desktops, and where they want to try to get to a oh yeah 5 gigahertz BIOS updates have made really good leaps and bounds for AMD's processing. And the 3950X, which is the comparison like upgrade from my processor, which is 2950X, which this is running on right now. That's why it's only running really super smooth on the situation of gameplay, is more of the portion of where and why we have gotten down to portions of how this is going to be like more of a overlay that we can kind of see in technology push forward. I don't really understand anything past that portion of like where we can hopefully see a lot more cooler things from that, because it's like yeah, Intel's got about 2-3 years before they fire back and have some really cool tech that will probably rival that of AMD's. But right now AMD's kind of stealing the show with adding more cores, because especially with November 5th being there, and that's the day I'm excited about, because if they release like a epic styled processor, which is probably rumored because of it utilizing the higher wattage that they utilized in the epic series, so it's like the portion of 64 cores would probably be there, as they have a new SKU, which is the 3960, the 3970, and 3990, which would make sense. The top portion would probably be 64 cores, the mid portion 32 cores, and 24 cores for the mid opening portion of where it was. So it'd be more than likely the two diodes of the two 3990X is just like slammed together. So who knows? In that situation, we'll figure that out as AMD kind of releases that. But let's go ahead and compare our scores and then run our last test before we kind of like figure out where our situation is going. So times by extreme as we look into like updates. And like this was again like an update of where I pushed the envelope of it being overclocked, this being the other portion. So DirectX 12 did a really great job, and like this newer update seems like they kind of fixed stuff, especially in the 4K market. Seems like 1080p more likely stabilized, so I'm more curious to see what the community of people out there are experiencing and what GPUs are acting up and what portions of the technology is working. Let's go ahead and jump into a Port Royale test, and we can get down to our final portion before looking where that lovely portion of technology and this image sharpening is available. I want to kind of see exactly where that is. That'd be kind of nice. But all things set aside, like cool things on like the portion of like where supercomputers are being built, it's kind of interesting to see the UK utilizing like a new portion of where the, I guess, first supercomputer of a crap load of AMD processors are going to be slammed together. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see like what ends up happening with that in the situation. So, well, very well, stay tuned to see when that one goes online. And then looking at the portions of where, I guess, there's another supercomputer that's being built. There's like 3 major computers right now in like 3 different nations of where they're kind of like basically pushing down and throwing down like the newer technology, which is pretty cool. So I'm gonna be very stoked to see like as that unfurls, and we kind of look forward to like seeing where stuff is. Okay, cool. Already out the gate, this kind of looks pretty good just for it being basic. 'Cause 35 to 40 is usually where it wants to kind of chill at roughly, with it not being overclocked for the Port Royale test with the ray tracing, which this way that it kind of like captures on like the Nvidia test versus AMD's test is completely different. I have noticed that it will stutter from time to time. Unfortunately, it's just nature of the beast. Just because it's not as a good portion. Though I do want to get the new Elgato card. It has a true bypass for 4K. And like I'm thinking that I probably should swap around my Avir card and my Elgato card in 2 different cases. That way my Avir can be the bypass, and then since that has a more better 4K at the moment until I can get my hands on the newer unit of the Elgato portion, because I want to try to do all generation, which is very interesting. The very first take, the mid take, and then like the late take. So this is coming out towards the very end. We've kind of hit the most peak, which was when it docks, like right there in the very end. You kind of see like where it's like shoots up. That's where the temperatures kind of like ride up towards more like the high 30 Celsius to like 40 Celsius. It's right around that time because it's like it's doing high FPS ray tracing at its max. Okay, so as we come around to this very tail end of the patch note, and we're coming up to the very beginning of where we will be going for the near future, let's go ahead and take a look at our tests back to back and see what we can do. If maybe one's better than the other. That actually is extraordinarily good for stock. So this is really good for ray tracing. Holy crap, that's actually... Let's compare some scores real fast. I mean, not too shabby, but when you look at my results, what I was overclocking. So this is stock. These are overclocks right here, because like the highest one I ever got was 9576, and that was mainly when I did it. Oh hey, what's going on? Someone new on like the chat. Was because I was running an AC directly to the card, so it was really pampered with temperature. But this is like my normal stock, so that went up by 20, give or take, and that was pretty consistent. When you kind of look at that Port Royale, so it's like that's pretty good. Honestly, I like to think that this update did pretty well. So let's go ahead and take a look at the image. So there's our control panel, and it's telling me directly where I'm supposed to be able to get the image sharpening, which is really, really hopefully in situationable point. You can kind of see where it is available here as well as here. But so if we follow that direction and we go inside of here and we open the situation up and we go to our manage tool. So So in order to basically get a hold of that, we're going to go to Manage 3D Settings. And then we'll be able to scroll down from those Manage 3D settings and be able to render in that really cool stuff with the added support. So we'll just look for image sharpening, which should hopefully just be down some, but it's maybe towards the tail end. Let's see. There we go. It's at the very top. Just turn it on. Let it do its thing. That's cool. And hopefully that does make a bigger difference. And that's kind of cool that they have now, like this situation, they have a low latency portion of what they've added into the portion of we can go to ultra, which was needed. A lot of people were asking for that. So now it's a situation that you kind of can be there for as far as what's going down. So I'm going to go ahead and hit apply. We'll see if that makes a bigger difference. Now our image sharpening's right there, and you can again adjust these where it's on, off, and then you have film grade and other portions where you can kind of sharpen and turn up what you need to for as far as that. Now personally myself, I noticed it instantaneously. You can kind of see the background art looks a little bit better, but for everyone that is new to the community, cheers. Thank you so much for staying tuned for this a little bit longer than normal episode. If you're new to the network, you can definitely subscribe. It helps me as a creator. It's absolutely free. Don't really ask for anything. And who knows? Maybe if you subscribe to me, I'll end up venturing to where the wild things are. And me and Max will go on a journey and hopefully survive some really cool crap. We'll come back with a really cool, like, Raiders of the Lost Ark GPU. Who knows? I'll have to subscribe to find out. But all subscription humor aside, thank you so much for also the returning community that has stayed true. And leave comments. I would very much like to hear what the community has to say for as far as what's going down with this update. I'm going to go ahead and get ready for the swap out for my graphics portion. I got a new AIO, and I would like to switch from the graphics portion of what I am right now to the CPU portion of Tender Care. So stay tuned. I'll probably do an unboxing of the NMAX because my other one failed, and thanks to Steve from Gaming Nexus, he was able to give me the information I needed in order to basically save my CPU before it died. So cheers, dude. You were really cool. You guys and gals part of my community. If you don't know Gaming Nexus, Steve, you should totally subscribe to him. He's really cool. Anyways, all set aside, thank you so much for staying tuned, and I will see you guys and gals in the near future. Stay tuned for new uploads and all technological updates of what happens in technology and patchwork. I usually do update within 24 hours, 48 hours of when it drops. So stay tuned. See you guys and gals in the near future, and stay classy. MacGyver7's community. I will see you in the near future, M7.